So the winter holidays are approaching, and because of that, I thought I'd take a little vacation. Wait a minute. This isn't the beach. Let's get into it. So if you couldn't tell from the little intro I did, or perhaps the title, today I'm remaking the desert, or most of it anyway. I decided to start with sand as it's the most important when it comes to making this biome. I attempted to try and make a more grainy looking texture so it looked a little bit more like shifting sand, because typically when you see sand, it has a sort of like line break in it because the particles have been moved. So I tried to recapsulate that. Moving on to arguably the second most important thing in a desert, the other type of sand in the game. Yep, it was that simple. For this, I really just made the regular sand texture red, so I don't have too much to say about this. I did slightly, very slightly, make it different, I believe, but it's basically the same texture. Now it's time for arguably the second most important item of a desert. A cactus. Because you can't have a desert without a cactus. Well, I mean you could, but it'd be a boring desert in my opinion. This took the longest of everything to make. Probably because it was the first block where you have to think about an object protruding off the block, but also because I made a heavy mistake while doing this, and that is I kept the white background, which once I put in game actually is still there because I wasn't thinking about it. So the cactus had a weird white border in the game. I have since fixed that issue, but I did make that stupid mistake. Alright, so here we can see me starting the creation of the dead bush, and this was very difficult for me because A, it's the first block that I've done that isn't exactly a block, and also there's only one texture in the game files, so I wasn't exactly sure how this gets displayed, so I just completely winged it and hope it worked out. I ended up trying to go for a more tumbleweed looking bush rather than Minecraft's thing that looks like a dead sapling. I think it turned out pretty well. Alright, so here we have sandstone. It's like sand, but it's stone. So for this, I ended up going with the basic kind of Minecraft texture and kind of trying to copy it. I also used all my other sand textures that I made before this as references, so I could try and match the colors up, even though I think I did a very poor job of that, because in the end I think it ends up being too bright. But hey, I can fix that in the future! Whoa! But yeah, I think it's a little too bright. I try and go for this multi-layered looking rock thing. Hopefully it looks like I think it does. I think it looks fine, but I do think it's a little bright. I tried to copy the weird, like, plateau looking base matte stone thing on the top that normal Minecraft has. Not necessarily sure if I got that across or not, but I tried to do it. Alright. Now we have red sandstone. It's sandstone, but kind of orange? Exactly. I don't know why we call it red, but we do. This, I think, matches a lot better to the actual sand than my regular sandstone texture does, because this one isn't as bright. Though I do think the top texture that I'm not going to show in the time lapse is a little bit more off compared to this texture compared to the sandstone one. However, I do think this texture looks better slightly. This one is a very modified version of the regular sandstone texture, as you can probably tell, and I actually took a very long time modifying this, probably more than I should have. Alright everybody, welcome to In-Game. And first thing you can see probably is the sand. Now personally, I don't like the sand. I think it looks horrible. I don't know if it's just because these patterns alternate or what, but it looks so bad, and I think I'm gonna have to put it on my list of redo. If you do not know, this series is my first attempt at the block. Here we have the cactus. I think the cactus looks pretty great with its pretty pink flowers. I want to make another version of it so it has varying textures where sometimes it doesn't have the flowers on it, but I need to mess around with some code and I didn't feel like doing that for the sakes of this video, because that would have taken way too long and extra time for just that one texture. Now, as you can see behind me and in front of me, here's the dead bush texture, and it looks kind of like a tumbleweed. I'm actually very happy with it. I think I want to make some different versions of it with slightly different color schemes as varying textures, maybe another size variant. But overall, I think it looks pretty nice. Moving on to up here, we can see red sand, which for some reason I think that this texture on the red sand just looks so much better than the texture on the regular sand. Like, look at that difference. I don't know what it is, but this one just looks nicer. Also, here we can see the two sandstones, and as I said, this one looks a little bright, but so is normal sand. So I don't know, do you think it matches? I think it kind of doesn't, but I think this matches better, but it also has very strong contrast to one another. Another thing that I was talking about during the time lapse is how I messed up this texture and made it way too orange, so it doesn't look good on top. But this is also what I was talking about when I talked about the plateau thing. You see how the side like ridges into that and it becomes all smooth? That's what I was referring to during that. And that's all I have for you today. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.